Hey everybody, welcome. It's Jim, it's Matt, and Matt, I'm gonna be the first one to own it, my friend. The New York Knickerbockers, they played basketball last night, and San Antonio was a little sloppy, to say the least. They were up 17 and lost by 10. So yeah, I didn't see that coming, and we talked about it yesterday. So I'll be the first to own up that the Knicks outplayed them.
Yeah, I sat here and said I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. Hand up, completely wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong, actually. Yeah, 27-point differential over, that stretch run. It's just, uh, I I think if you're San Antonio, that does feel like a game where it's tough to lose them at home because
Mhm.
now it forces you to go win them at MSG. I mean, it's not like an insurmountable task. It was something that they were going to, want to do, obviously, going into it. But it just a confusing game overall from San Antonio, and really two of the guys that you wanted to show up in De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, they kind of faltered in the moment. Right,
Right.
like, they were I think, and I did this math earlier, so I don't have it exactly. I think they were a combined 9 of 34 from the field,
Yeah.
if that's correct off the top of my head, and then I think they were 2 of 13 from 3 combined as well.
Hmm.
They also had a grand total of 9 turnovers between the 2 of them. When your turnover to made shot ratio is 1 to 1, that's not a winning formula. Never
No,
will be, never has been in the history of
ain't
basketball.
gonna ain't gonna happen again.
Yeah, it is just not going to happen. So when you get those kind of performances, specifically from your star and Victor Wembanyama, and really the veteran leader in that backcourt. Talk about Stephon Castle, he played pretty well,
Mhm.
and then you talk about Dylan Harper. He's a rookie and he played fantastic in that game. Your rookie guard showed up. It was your veteran guard and your veteran leadership and De'Aaron Fox that did not show up in that game. So it's tough. I mean, that's a tough formula for San Antonio last night. You have to give all the credit in the world to the Knicks. I was skeptical on them. I said they needed to go win that game to kind of make me believe. I believe like this. I'm now all in. I think this is going to be a fantastic series, and really this is one now that when you see what New York's been able to do, and the belief that I have in San Antonio and their ability to kind of, clear the mechanism, rinse everything, go back fresh for game two, and do that consistently throughout a series. I think this is going to be a great series, one that's probably destined for 6 or 7 games. And if it does get to that game six,
Mhm.
boy, what a sports week or what a sports day it would be for the state of New York if there's a game six in this finals.
Well, it's gonna be interesting, and I'll tell you. Um, we talked a little bit yesterday about if the Knicks were gonna be successful, they needed help from Anthony Towns, and man, did he ball last night.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what they needed. I think it's important to remember that Jalen Brunson went out of that basketball game with an injury at one
Yeah.
point. Like they weren't always at full strength. They get him back. Uh, it's it's hard to come back 17 points against you know
Anyway,
yeah. I mean you can be playing the Bulls in like what is it? When does
the
the
Jordan
season start?
heyday. Yes.
Yeah, you can. Oh, I was just gonna say like this year's Bulls. You could be playing this year's Bulls in December,
Mhm.
right? And it's hard to come back from 17. To do it in the finals against who is a really good basketball team in defensive basketball team in San
Mhm.
Antonio says a lot about who they are and who their makeup is. And to be honest, I feel like I learned more about the New York Knicks last night than I did over these last two series. Again, I just wasn't fond of the tests that they were facing. I didn't know how much it told me about who New York was as a basketball team as a whole. This gives me a better idea of their makeup and their character as a whole and who they are as a complete unit in a basketball team.
Yeah, and they earned it. They outplayed them, and they did everything they needed to do to make it a to make it the kind of game that we didn't, I'll say it for myself that I didn't believe they could play.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. I was not a believer in New York. I was fully on the bandwagon of everything felt like it was some media hype around New York, and I'm
Which is
very big.
normally the case, by the way, just for the
Yeah,
sake of argument.
I'm very big, and this is something that I've held probably for I think 4 years now, really since the first time I ever placed a wager on a
Mhm.
sporting event. Is I'm not a fan of trendy underdogs. Like it's easy to get caught up in it, and people tend to lose sight of things that are actually going on the field.
Mhm.
And they typically speaking, they don't win, right? And that's what it felt like
Sure.
with New York. It felt like it was a trendy underdog, and I didn't love the matchup that I was seeing across the board from them. But they prove that they're more than just a trendy underdog. They're a legitimate threat in this finals, and they're a team now that has taken control of home court advantage. Now all they have to do, and look, there's ebbs and flows and momentum, but if you just break this down into its simplest form, you
Mhm.
go win 4 games at the Garden, or you go win the 3 games that you're going to play at the Garden, and you're NBA champions now. Like that, that's as simple as it is. You go defend your home court, and you're NBA champions now.
Which clearly is something that they're capable of doing. I mean, they proved it last night.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, hopefully that situation will work itself out. We got another game tonight on ABC. This time it's hockey, and the Golden Knights, just like the Knicks, came into town and decided to steal the cookie jar, and off they went. So I think it was quite the entertaining situation from what we were seeing last night, or night before last. I'm sorry. That this Saints team is not going to go away.
Yeah, yeah.
I should have said Knights, not Saints.
Yeah, well, that's I was to be honest, I was a little bit
Like, what the
confused.
hell is he talking about? Come on, Jim. Jeez,
Yeah, I
give
was
me a break.
a tad bit confused, but yeah, no. Look, that's and again, there's similarities in these two. I think in these not not Vegas, their playoff runs to the title are two very different things,
Mhm.
but you could see some similarities in Vegas's run and New York's run. Like there's a team that's been extremely successful, but you kind of want to see them go beat Carolina on their home ice. They went and they took down Carolina on their home ice, and now they have the potential to, I mean, just really continue building that momentum. If you get both of the first 2 games, away from home, then it feels like it's impossible for the other team to come back in the series, just because of the kind of home ice advantage you would have at that point. And I mean that goes for any sporting event that's in a 7 game series. Like when you lose that amount of games, it's very difficult to have to come back from.
Hmm. And usually you don't.
Yeah.
I remember the 2019 World Series where the Nationals and the Astros played, and the, in a very rare situation, neither team won a game at home.
Yeah. Um,
You don't see that often.
no, you don't. And yeah, what was the oh God, there's some series where like was it Indiana and what was it? Was it Indiana and New York or Indiana and Oklahoma City last year in the final?
Indiana, Oklahoma City.
That's what, yeah. And like it's like, just book it. The away team's gonna win. It's not something that happens, and I think it makes headlines so much because of the rarity that it is to have the dynamic of both teams really just losing away or losing at home
Right,
and winning away. Like it's such a rare thing because it is so hard to do. Like regardless of sport,
right.
home floor, home court, home ice, what home field, whatever sport you're playing, it plays a factor. It plays a significant factor because it's easier to. It is. I think every game, regardless of sport, is momentum based to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Um, Now, obviously, you have to have a baseline level of talent to be where you are. This, that, and the other. Like there's outside factors that impact stuff like that.
Sure.
But in terms of just breaking it down purely momentum based, it happens in every sport. Um, and the thing about home field or home court or something like that, just home playing at home, is your fans and your comfort level in that stadium make it a lot easier to gain momentum. And when you lose it, they make it a lot easier to kind of get it back, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody's pulling in the same direction. They're working in the same direction. I mean, unless you're just getting absolutely waxed out there, then you're probably going to be able to regain some momentum at some point throughout the course of the game. Um, and it matters a lot because sometimes the crowd can be an intimidating factor. But I think when you go to momentum, that's really where it has its most value, and that's the reason. Like part of the thing with the Knicks, going back to that series, is they've traveled really well throughout the playoffs, and I
Hmm.
think that's helped them.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I don't think there's any question about that. But and I think one of the other things that I find fascinating in that is that I've spoken to guys who are playing in you know in a series like the Stanley Cup or World Series or any of those longer series, not the Super Bowl situation. And I ask them what's the most important part of home. The building, that, and most of them, I would say 8 out of 10 that I've asked said it's sleeping in my own bed and going through my own routine, driving to the driving to the to the arena or field, depending on which sport you're talking about, and just the sense of that I'm not in a hotel, that I'm not besieged by fans or that whole routine, but the fact that I can go home, go to sleep, get up, get in my car, drive back to the arena. So again, I don't know that in college. I think you can get fans can intimidate you.
Hmm.
I don't think that happens in the NBA as much as people might think it does.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's necessarily an intimidation factor in a professional level of sports. It's just more feeling the momentum. But you're right about the routine. Routine is everything, especially for these high level athletes. Like I would say, it's like finding a needle in a haystack for one of these guys who doesn't have like a set routine when they are at home throughout the season, and a set routine when they're at home, in the off season. Like
Hmm.
these guys are creatures of habit, and they like to stick to their same routine. And when you're out on the road, your routine changes. There's not necessarily like city by city, things can be different sometimes, and to an extent, when you're in a series like this, you can kind of get used to the other city to a certain
Hmm.
extent. Um, but at the same time, there's nothing like it's never going to be going home sleeping in your own bed, right?
Hmm.
Like a hotel
Sure.
room. I don't think it's ever going to match like as nice as a hotel can be, and sometimes you can get some good sleep. It's still, regardless, not going to be the same thing as sleeping in your own room and your own bed.
No, and then you've got, as I said before, if it's like like a championship situation like this is, right?
Hmm.
Um, you've got family, and friends. So you're wondering, you're making sure that everybody's got the tickets and all that other stuff. So you have these side issues going on that makes it more, you know, in some cases it's probably easier to play on the road in these kind of things than it is um, during normal season.
Yeah, it definitely can be because look, when you're at home, everybody wants a piece of you, right?
Right? Sure.
Like everybody wants to go to the finals. Everybody wants tickets to the game,
Mhm.
and that can be a headache. Now, granted, if they're traveling with you, sometimes that can be even more of a headache. Sometimes,
Yep, 100%.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I think it's interesting, like that point in particular, going back to what we talked about yesterday, and something that I had mentioned in terms of the Boston Red Sox and how they talked about how at home things were a lot bigger than they were on the road. I think the same can be true, like especially for the finals in an event like that. Things are a lot bigger at home. There's a lot more people around, and you don't necessarily get the same tight knit kind of closeness that you maybe do on the road when it's really just you and your teammates and your coaches, and you guys are out there on the road together. Going out there with one really sole focus in mind, and that's winning games and getting back home.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot to do in New York, and I think that this young group will probably not tarry far from the hotel.
Yeah, I mean Victor Wembanyama. I think that San Antonio kind of lucks out with the fact that their young star is decided that he was going to go train with the monks last offseason.
Yep,
Like he's not one that really gives you the vibe that he's gonna be going out, you know, to every
partying. Yeah,
yeah to every finals party there is while they're in New York City.
yeah, and it's. I think it's gonna be fun to watch the remainder um, of the series. Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I haven't written off our boys yet, San Antonio. Um, it's. I still think they can come in and take this, but yeah, we're just gonna have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, they shot 26% from behind the arc yesterday. They
Just
shot
don't play that.
36
Yeah,
they shot 36% overall. That's not going to get it done. Just anywhere at
not in
all.
NBA Finals. No.
Yeah, and I think the worst part is that when you look at it, like really where did most of their misses come from? And it was from Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. But then you go down the line, and that entire starting five for San Antonio, not there was one dude, and that was Champagne, who had a good night from behind the 3-point arc.
Right.
Aside from that, it was 2 for 9, 0 for 4, 1 for 6, 1 for 5. And that's just not going to get it done because those are your numbers from your starting five overall. There's no consistency in that. And when you're taking that volume of 3-point shots,
Mm-hmm.
then there's not going to be you don't give yourself an opportunity to build momentum and go on some bigger runs because you're taking threes and you're missing threes all the time. Like there's a certain aspect of when you go back to the Rockets when James Harden was good and like
Mm-hmm.
man when they were on, they were unbeatable. Like I think people tend to forget what they were doing to Golden State when they had Kevin Durant. The only problem is that when they went ice cold, anybody could beat them, like anybody, because that they relied so heavily upon that 3-point shot. And so when you have shooting percentages like that, you're not going to win a basketball game of this magnitude, regardless of where you're playing, regardless of who you're playing, when you're shooting that bad from behind the arc. Like they made the same amount of 3-point shots. Both teams did. Both teams made 11 threes. The difference is San Antonio shot 43 of them and New York shot 36.
Mm-hmm.
So they took a better selection of shots, New York did, and they were more efficient in their shot taking. And they didn't, necessarily force threes. Like Carl Anthony Towns, 0 for 2. Josh Hart, 0 for 3. Like they weren't just hucking them up. Jalen Brunson was 2 for 9, but he was also 12 of 31
Mm-hmm.
and did suffer that injury. I think so just overall, they have to be better, and I think just do a better job of making good decisions on the offensive side of the floor in terms of their shot selection, specifically when you have a 7'5" center who's taking 9 3-pointers. Why is he second on your team in 3-pointers attempted? I get it. He can shoot the basketball, and that is great, and that is a very valuable skill for him to have. There is no world where he needs to be taking 9 3-pointers in a game. Like it's just not It's not where he has the most value for this team.
No, and never will be.
No,
So,
because he's such a size mismatch. Like what?
mhm.
Unless this is just something that he is bullish on and he loves shooting the three, even if that is the case, at some point somebody in that locker room would have to get in his ear and be like, this is not where your value is. Like it's good and we need to utilize it to the best of our abilities. But this is not how we win basketball games, by you taking almost half of your shots from behind the arc.
Well, when you're 7'4", it's you kind of want to be closer to the basket.
Yeah.
If for nothing else, to get the rebounds.
Yeah. I mean, that helps too, because you can get there's second chance opportunities to be there. And when you're taking 9 3-pointers, you have to assume that Wemby is starting, maybe not outside the arc, but he's starting right there at it. And so if you get a quick shot in that case, then you're not in a position to where you can go and get an offensive rebound.
Right.
There's so much value in terms of the fouls that he can draw from being in the paint. And look, he was still in the paint a decent amount, but it's not to the level of effectiveness and consistency that you need out of a guy that is that size and that
Right.
really honestly cannot be stopped on the interior unless he's fouled. Like that.
Right.
That's where
Unless
you
he
are
stops
going.
himself.
Yeah, this is where you're going to win basketball games. And I think, look, Karl-Anthony Towns had 4 fouls last night. You're not far from getting him out of a basketball game. And you wonder, you go back, hey, maybe if Wemby's in the paint a couple more times, we get Karl-Anthony Towns out of that basketball game, a guy who was a difference maker for them. So it just seems like they need to get back, to the drawing board and find ways to get Victor Wembanyama in the paint. I know that New York probably game planned, and their game plan was to kind of force him outside and make him a little bit more of a perimeter player. And all credit to them, because that's what he was. Now, if you're San Antonio, you got to get back to the drawing board and you got to counter and you got to find ways to get him the basketball inside the paint and get him good quality looks inside the paint, so that they have to start fouling and they have to do something about that. You don't start the game from outside the arc and that opens things up inside. Specifically with this team, is you got to start inside and that opens things up on the perimeter.
And hopefully they'll be able to do it. And I think they will. I do. I think they'll get there at this point. All right, so we're playing at the Memorial in Ohio, and should be a very interesting situation. There, all the biggies are there, the name guys. So
yeah, and a couple of them playing well. You've got an early leaderboard that's maybe, probably not going to be everybody's favorite golfers necessarily. At T1, you do have JJ Spaun and Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy, I know, is a star on the PGA Tour, just for the guy that he is and the personality that he is. But after that, you get on a little bit of a run. Nick Taylor's sitting at 3 under. He's in a solo third position. Ryan Fox and JT Poston, along with Keegan Bradley, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, Justin Rose, Kurt Kitayama, and Taylor Pendrith. That is the group that is tied for 4th at 2 under. Not a star-studded event in terms of maybe who's sitting at 2nd, but you do have a lot of stars and a man who has dominated this golf course over the past 2 years, and Scottie Scheffler, that is going to be waiting and lurking in that afternoon window of tee times. He's won this tournament. I mean, look, relatively easily the last 2 years, all things considered. There's been a gap between Scottie Scheffler and the field at the Memorial over the last 2 years. I'll be curious to see if it carries over. The biggest thing for Scottie and where his game is lacked. And I think it's interesting because you think about Scottie Scheffler and you think about that iron play and how precise it's been. He's 115th in proximity to the hole this year on the PGA Tour. And that is surprising given, his what you believe to be a strength in his iron play. You look at all the strokes gained numbers and they're right up there where you'd expect them to be. But that proximity to the hole has really kind of bit him because his putting hasn't been as good. And part of the reason I would say his putting probably hasn't been as good is because he hasn't been as close to the hole as he has been in past years. It's something that I'm very curious to see if he has dialed in a little bit more this week, because this is going to be his final, his final competitive event before he does chase that Grand Slam at Shinnecock here in a couple of weeks.
Yep, it is coming. It's definitely coming. And so now I'm gonna get your take on some college football, which we talked about in the pre-show a little bit, and that is that we see a lot of these people talking about conference relocation, all that sort of thing. But when you look at the money, everything that happens in college football is going to be in the hands of a guy who I used to work with by the name of Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner. The Big Ten, from what I've been told, is going to begin opening their exclusive window for for their new deal sometime next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that means NBC, for those of you who don't know how this works, NBC, Fox, CBS, predominantly Fox because they're the lead dog in this race, are going to have an opportunity to re-up.
Mm-hmm.
And I also heard, and this story will come out later this afternoon. And I'll be crucified on X, but I don't care. It freezes ESPN because ESPN, whatever that number is, and it's going to be a god awful large number that they're going to get. It freezes ESPN because they're going to have to figure out a way to match it for the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? Well, that means, let me make this clear to all you Big 12 fans out there who have just turned on me. They'll get a bump, okay? I'm talking about Big 12 will get more money. Not a lot more, but some. But here's what they're not going to do. They don't have the money for it. And Fox doesn't have the money for it. They're not going to pay like they did to bring in the four corner schools when the Pac-12 disintegrated. So if you're going to add a team, okay, because you're not adding the marquee teams from the ACC, you're adding, mid-level at best teams from and I don't mean that in any disrespect to the teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm just saying that it's not going to, Virginia Tech's not going to move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Tech's not going to move the needle. Duke, maybe in basketball, but nowhere else. Point being, there's no way that ESPN or Fox would pay $50 million or $30 million to these teams, to add them into the conference. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know on X that everybody loves to say, well, team A is going here, team B is going there, the ACC is going to crumble like the Pac-12. No, it's not, because there's only a certain amount of spendable dollars that networks have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we know that there's only the two big conferences are going to get the lion's share of that money.
Yeah.
And you can bitch and moan about it, but, they deliver.
Yeah. And again, I go back, and from a purely I think the football that you get probably on a week in, week out basis,
Mm-hmm.
the Big 12 is better. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a hot take or anything. But in terms of brand recognition, the Big 12 lacks severely in comparison to the ACC overall. Because, again, like we can run through the teams, but the matter of the fact is that there are going to be more people. And part of this is coast based, like the fact that a lot of these teams are placed a little bit more along the East Coast versus
Mhm.
most of the teams in the Big 12 are sitting somewhere in the Midwest, kind of maybe a little bit more towards the West Coast. You know
Mhm.
that that does matter in terms of eyeballs. But look, like the brands of Georgia Tech, the brand of UNC, Duke, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, all of those, regardless of what they're putting on the football field, and in terms of getting eyeballs to the TV and people wanting to watch them, they're better. Like they're just better in terms of you throw a logo up there, more people are going to recognize it, more people are going to be likely to watch it than they are, when you throw the Baylor logo up there. It's just true. I mean, TCU, to their credit, they had a run a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
They haven't returned to that form. Arizona State's done a good job, but all of these have been flash in the pan instances. Like Texas Tech has been good, and there's reason to believe that they will continue to be good given the model that they've built. It seems made for NIL. But again, that's one brand. You're banking on one brand at that point in Texas Tech to be your recognizable brand of the Big 12. And it's just not something that is sustainable. You've seen Oklahoma State take a significant decline. Mike Gundy, for a long time, was Oklahoma State football,
Sure.
was that brand. He's not there anymore. I think that loses a little bit of its luster to an extent. So when you pair that up with I think this is a big question, and to be honest, I just now thought of it. What Big 12 rivalry can't you miss?
I'm
If they're playing
thinking.
on the football field, which
I'm
one?
thinking. Uh, Shoot. Huh. Okay, I'll give you one, and it's not one that I'm sure that the rest of the world's gonna go crazy about, but it's the holy war between Utah and BYU.
Yeah, and that's a really good rivalry. But
Yeah.
when I pitch you the Holy War in BYU and Utah, Big 12 isn't the first thing that comes to your mind. Like that,
Well,
that's not where the branding
let's
goes.
just say that's on the same Saturday where Alabama's playing Tennessee and Penn State is playing against Indiana.
Yeah, it's not
Where's
going to
the
be wrong.
eyeballs going to be? The
It's
eyeballs
not
are going
going
to
to be
be on
wrong.
those first two games and not the third one.
And I think to an extent you can even go further. Like, yes, the Holy War's good, but man, even if I stick you that that FSU Miami game from last year, that's
Hmm.
probably still going to get a bigger draw. And it's not a knock on those teams because it is a great rivalry. I
Hmm.
like watching that game. It's a fun game because there is a certain level of hatred that goes in between those two teams, especially when Utah's going into BYU, and you've heard people talk about it like man, they're saying the nastiest things, but they're not cussing. He said it's like they've talked about it. It's like it's almost jarring hearing people, talk trash without tossing in some cuss words there. But it just doesn't have the same national attention and the same national draw. And that doesn't make it a bad rivalry. It doesn't make it a worse rivalry. I think in terms of the success they've had on the field, it's a significantly better rivalry in terms of what product you've gotten on the football field compared to that of like an FSU and Miami, or I mean an FSU and Clemson, which was a big one for a while, still is a big one to an extent, except for the fact that both those teams suck now. Um, so they just don't have the brand recognition, and you can't build brand recognition overnight. And to be honest, you can't change the location that your schools are in. Like that does matter to an extent in this equation of it all. And there are just, mountains that they have to climb that aren't necessarily climbable.
Yeah, and to be honest, and fair, the in my mind, what we're seeing here is a situation where the students and alumni are getting screwed because how many people can afford to go and watch a game between, well, we'll just take Indiana and USC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like you're gonna drive to Los Angeles.
No, no, and that's where if Indiana has a good turnout at USC, that's because they have the largest alumni base in the world, right?
Right.
Like that's the reason why, not because necessarily, and it's not a knock. I'm not saying that they don't, but it's not because Indiana travels well. It's because Indiana has such a large fan base. I think you can go back to that Peach Bowl in Atlanta for Indiana. I think a big reason for that and some of their turnout, obviously they had fans travel in, but again, that the size of their alumni base helps. And some of these schools in the Big 12, like I'm thinking Baylor, I'm thinking TCU, I'm thinking, it's ACC now, but just in the same realm, SMU. Like there are private schools in these conferences that then limits your alumni base, and so it kind of limits your ability to have that same national reach to an extent.
Oh, 100%. The biggest thing here is that you know one, if you're going to do the rivalry thing, right? And I'm all for it. What you got to do is you have to put it in a window where it's not going to get up against something. I'll give you an example. Was it last year? I want to say last year. Um, I think last year that the backyard brawl between Pitt and West Virginia played, and that did a hell of a number. But it was on a Friday night, and nothing else was against it.
Yeah. And that's where you're able to draw those numbers when you're not in competition. And look, there's a certain level of college football fandom that's going to, like, they understand what's on TV a little bit more than maybe
Mhm.
your common people. But the matter of the fact is like, if I know that a really good game is going to be on like FS2,
Yeah.
like it's not getting put in front of the right people for them to understand what the product is necessarily,
Hmm.
because not everybody is like me, not everybody's like you, not everybody knows kind of what's going on, and I think that's something that I think I've learned more recently is really just how, for most people, like, how deep the fandom goes for 98% of the population, regardless of sport,
Hmm.
is it's about an inch deep. Like it's extremely surface level in terms
Hmm.
of who they like, their sports, how they follow them. There's not there's not a large contingent of people that are necessarily like diehard sports people. And so at that point, you're missing, like, you're going to get your audience, but the problem is that the audience of people that want to, like, that are dying to watch it because they know that it's good football is so much smaller than it's worth to these networks compared
Hmm.
to, you know, I mean, you can stick, let's call a spade a spade. You can stick 8-4 Penn State and 8-4 Michigan on a football field, put it on FS1. That thing's going to draw 5 million people, no problem.
Hmm.
So,
And
you know,
and to that point, I think the other part of it is that you know, especially in the ACC, right? Yeah, there's this myth that football is the door that opens for a university. I can honestly tell you from being at every one of those universities in the ACC that the kids that go there are going there for because of the academics.
mhm.
It's nice if the team wins,
Yeah,
but if it doesn't, you know, they still go to class and life goes on.
yeah,
That is not the case to a degree in the SEC or Big Ten, Big 12. Um, and I say that the SEC because I'm familiar with the Big Ten and the SEC. they're still good universities. Okay, there's nothing in that regard, and that whole situation. But when you go to Georgia, it's not like you're going there because of the team, but you are going the moment you stepped on campus, you feel it. You feel that team. You feel that camaraderie about what Saturdays in Athens is all about, or what Saturdays in Ann Arbor is all about. You cannot step on that campus and not feel it. And that's what I think separates the Big Ten, the SEC you know, from the ACC, and frankly, the Big 12 has pretty much the same feeling, but with a lesser group of schools.
Well, and I've talked about it before. It's like, I've been on campus for games in Athens. I've been on campus
Mhm.
for a game in Chapel Hill. Is you just cannot, like, they showed up in Chapel Hill for Bill Belichick's first game of the year, and then I mean literally every piece of the wagon fell apart in the midst of that first game, and that's when they stopped caring. Like it's not. It wasn't something I think even if they win that football game, there's reason to doubt how many people are going to show up on Saturdays in Chapel Hill
Mhm.
because and they're really one of the closer things you're going to get to an SEC school, but still there's just a different care about the level of football. And I mean that stretches back to like you go I mean, you go on campus when Georgia's playing Mercer. Like, is it the same vibe as when they're playing Alabama? No, but you still know it's game day, and that there's just a different energy, a different focus, and a different level of passion that goes into the sport of football. In like the Southeastern Conference compared to the ACC. I mean, hell, Duke won an ACC title last year, and
Mhm.
Eddie Diaz couldn't have got on his knees, begged and pleaded to the national media anymore to have gotten that fan base to fill out that stadium. I just don't think it would have happened. So, it just it doesn't matter at some of these places the product that you put on the football field, they won't sell it out. Now there's places, in the ACC where you can flip side that like to an extent, Florida State's put a pretty bad product on the football field, but they've still had decent attendance. And that can be said for Clemson going into last year as well. But even those schools, to an extent, like after they're not good, like Miami, it took what Mario Cristobal did last year for them to be able to fill out Hard Rock. And I get it. There's some logistical problems in that campus, in that stadium being not on campus for Miami, this, that, and the other. Still, no one was showing up to Miami games. Florida State, when they get bad for enough of a stretch, watch what happens at Doak Campbell this year. Like that place is going to be a damn ghost town for a lot of the year, in all likelihood. And I think similar expectations can be said about Death Valley and Clemson. Is the rapport that they built up and the fan bases that they have when they're good, they are going to fill it out. When they're average, they're probably going to fill it up. But when they're bad, they just don't show up. And I think you look at Jordan Hare and what Auburn's done really over since COVID. Like Jordan Hare is still packed to the brim, even though they put out a dog shit product year in and year out at that stadium.
Well, and I think the thing with Manny and with FSU, or Mario, I'm saying Mario. Uh, the thing at Miami, the reason it worked at the Orange Bowl is because it wasn't far from campus. Now,
Yeah.
again, you couldn't walk there. That's number one. Number one, you couldn't walk there. Number two, which might be number one, you wouldn't want to try to walk there. Not necessarily the best neighborhood in all of Miami. But that being said, there was some mystique of the old Orange Bowl. I mean, the damn thing rocked like it was going to fall down. Um, then you go and build Hard Rock, which is the better part of maybe 45 minutes away. We're talking traffic now, I'm not talking distance. at the very end of Dade County. So you're going from downtownish Miami and Coral Gables all the way up north to to the northern part of Dade, which basically puts you at about 35 miles away from campus.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard thing to get. It's a private school as well. It's not like it's a big university. It's hard to figure out, to logistically get people up there. And during the heyday of Miami football back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the real draw, was the people who were in the community. You go there and you would see people who were, hey, I'm right here. I'm a fan I'm a fan of the Miami Hurricanes. I didn't, not attending them, but I'm a fan. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, they're the national reach of the brands in the ACC is just in summation. Your national reach of your brands in the ACC is pretty much universally going to be better than the ones you get from the Big 12. Like I know we've sat here and we've shit on the Big 12, it seems like. But the matter of the fact is that the brands they have just aren't good enough. Their best brands were Pac-12 football teams, generally speaking,
That fell in their lap.
prior to them, just being gifted to the Big 12, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't some big power play by the Big 12. They didn't come up with some big brain idea, get these guys to come over. They got lucky, is what they got. And the matter of the fact is that had they not gotten lucky, they wouldn't be a conference right now. Like they would have capsized at this point, because look at their actual additions. Go and look at the teams that they actually added. That was their response to Texas and Oklahoma leaving, not the ones they got given. It was UCF. Oh God, I don't even remember. It was UCF, Houston,
Cincinnati, and BYU.
Yeah, that's not enough. Like that's not good enough. That's not a product that's going to get you good, TV dollars or anything like that. So, they can hoop and holler and say what they want to. The matter of fact is that the collapse of the Pac-12 saved their ass in a way that they're now flaunting, like it's some great big feat. They're not going to get big money. They're going to get, little brother money in terms of what they're making. They're going to get fourth rung on the ladder type money, because that's what they are in terms of brand recognition and the value that they provide to TV
Mhm.
TV execs and producers. It's fourth rung on the ladder in terms of their conference.
Well, there's also Bob Bowlesby, who was the commissioner prior to Brett Yermark at the Big 12. I give credit to Bowlesby. He went out and he grabbed four Power Four school, four group of five teams.
Yeah,
And he got the best of what was there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all right, fine. He's backfilling.
Yeah.
All right. So what does he do after that? He goes to the state of Texas because they are in the midst of doing some sort of analysis of what's happening to the Big 12 post losing Oklahoma and Texas. And Bowlesby says, guys, we'll be lucky to get $25 million a team out of a new contract because we lost our biggest brands.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the Pac-12, who literally just bungled that whole routine. And it's at that point you realize, wait a minute. All of a sudden, four schools fall into Brett Yormark's lap. They're Power Four conference schools, and suddenly, what was a ghost conference, teetering on the edge of being, a Power Four conference, suddenly launch into us to the middle of the group, and maybe, depending upon who you talk to, third best conference in football. not because they, you know, organically it came that way, but
Mhm.
because of, you know, out of the absolute mismanagement of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
The ACC is not that stupid.
No.
So, you know, I do get a little miffed at the Big 12 bravado about what they've got when they ain't got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. They really
The
don't.
only school there now, the only school in that conference that ever won a national championship was BYU in 1984.
Yeah. I think an interesting question. You may have a better idea of this, but there's another. Granted, it's a private school, but I mean, it's got its alumni base has just about what feels like all the money in the world. Why is SMU an ACC school, not a Big 12 school?
Because the Big 12 decided they have enough Texas schools.
Mm,
Um, and there's been a little bit of bias, to be honest. SMU is a private school. SMU is a, you know, to get into SMU, and you know, it's a small, private, very affluent school. I mean, when you
mhm.
can just call up the ACC and say, "Look, we'll forego the rights to 2036. Just let us
Yeah.
in the conference," and then compete as they did. That proves there's a proof of concept that, you know, okay, maybe had they been added to the Big 12, that would have been a good get.
Yeah.
But they took Houston instead, and Houston gives them a basketball team, but sure as hell doesn't give them anything in football.
And it also lost rivalries, like the Iron Skillet with
Right.
Texas, with TCU and SMU. That was a good.
Bedlam. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had an opportunity there. That feels like a missed opportunity, to be honest.
Yeah. And, you know, the other part is that, and it's something that has bothered me, is that you've got the um, the constant bickering about, well, we're going to add, you know, these four schools from you know, from the ACC to the, you know, in essence, they're fantasizing over the same kind of situation that happened with the Pac-12. You know,
Yeah.
when Virginia Tech and Louisville and all that comes over, man, we're going to be in great shape. Well, here's the deal: ESPN and Fox paid. Actually, I should say, let me rephrase that. ESPN paid when Big Four came in. Now, mind you, the four schools that Bowlesby brought in took less money. Okay,
Mhm.
so they took a percentage, but ESPN paid, which was 30. I think it was 30. If memory serves, 31.7 or something like that per school in a 6-year deal, and they landed. You know, they onboarded 8 teams.
Mhm.
4 they had planned on, and 4 they had not planned on. And so to say that, you know, ESPN and Fox are going to rush over and say, "Oh yeah, let's spend money on buying these teams and paying them, you know, whatever the bump is going to be." Let's say the bump goes up from 31 to 45, okay? Something like that. They're not going to, you know, because as we said before, ESPN is going to sit there and Fox is going to sit there and go, "We're putting all our money in the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
We're not spending an additional $40 million for you to add 4 schools. It's just not going to happen."
Yeah. And at a certain point too, with the Big 12, I think there's a couple things here. One, if you're somebody who's rooting for the Big 12, wants the Big 12 to succeed, does it not concern you that you have to sit back and just cross your fingers and go, please ACC, please fall apart? Like that's what it's going to take. It feels like. And to the second, there's only so many seats at the table here. Like,
Sure.
how many teams are you going to have in this damn conference? Are you going to be like a 30-team conference at one point? Is that what you're shooting for? Because I mean, at that point, just call yourself AAA. Like that's what it's going to feel like. Like you're it's not. Listen, it's not FCS football, but it ain't the top of the FBS either. You somewhere hanging around in the middle, kind of, to an extent. And look, I love what Scott Satterfield has done at Cincinnati. He's a fantastic football coach. But the matter of fact is that nobody really takes Cincinnati football that seriously anymore. And I mean, to an extent, even when Luke Fickell was there and they made the playoff, nobody took Cincinnati football that serious then either. Dana Holgorsen, wait, that's not the right guy.
No.
Whoever's at Houston right now, great job last year, really good season. Nobody's like, hey, look at what Houston did last year. Connor Wegman's coming back. Like that, nobody's looking at it like that. It shows you what kind of teams they are that you have. I mean, UCF's fallen off a cliff. I'm glad they got Scott Frost back. It's a cool story. They're not the same football program they were the first time he was there, right? So
Nope.
all of these programs, even to a certain extent, regardless of their success, like you look at Cincinnati, they had a great year. Why'd they have a great year? Brendan Sorsby, their quarterback, was pretty damn good. And now he's at Texas Tech, granted, facing, every gambling violation he could have possibly committed during his time playing, collegiate football. But again, ultimately,
By the way, Willie Fritz is the coach.
Willie Fritz. Yeah. I mean, great job. Really good job. It's not enough. Like, more people put stock in, and I think the reason that those teams are attractive in the group of five is because they stand out amongst the group of five. When you put them in the Power Five, they blend in and they get lost in the shuffle a lot of times. And so, it's tough. They just don't have the branding to make themselves stand out.
No, they don't. And I've said this a number of times, and I'll say it again. More doesn't mean better. More just means more. And that's why I don't think that it's so incredibly important to have to pick over the bones of the big of the ACC. And we're assuming here a lot, and that means, guys I've spoken to at the at the networks and over on other areas that are involved in this whole regrouping of conference people, and that is that basically they're like, wait a minute, I'm not even sure that we're gonna, I'm talking about Petiti, right? I'm not sure we're gonna even add anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's it's very telling when you listen to the words of Tony Petiti and Greg Sankey.
Right.
They're not in the business of adding teams. Like they're not just out there dying. If the right pairing comes along and it's at the right price, then yeah, I'm sure they'd be open to it. But it's not something that they are both of these conferences are actively seeking out because they have no need to anymore. Like their needs have been fulfilled. They are supplied. I think the Big Ten now has kind of rebranded. It's a more national conference, right?
Yeah.
National. Because I mean, what it is really is it's the Northeast and like the four best teams off the West Coast. And for the SEC, it's you've got a stranglehold on your market better than anyone else in terms of you dominate the South. You are the South. That is your footprint. The South is where college football is dominant, like regardless of who's winning national titles, right? In terms of who cares and who's going to be bought in, the South is college football. And so they've got their identities and their footprints and they're established and they don't have to go out and add anything because, what is the big what is the Big Ten going to add? Are they going to add? Are they going to stretch down to the South and add to that regional footprint in terms of, maybe getting a team from Florida, maybe getting a North Carolina, maybe, reaching into Atlanta, and the SEC's home in their backyard and getting Georgia Tech, right? Like that's the only way where you add value. And if you're the SEC, what team's going to add that value? Like bringing in North Carolina is not going to add a rivalry, right? Bringing in Florida State feels like you're just taking on dead weight for a school that can't manage money for shit right now. And like Miami, sure, maybe again, like you get the Florida rivalry. That's pretty much it with Miami. It's just there's not a place that you can definitively point and say this is where we get better as a conference if we add these teams for either of these conferences now.
No, geographically, okay. The two teams that make the most sense would be Florida State and Clemson.
Mm-hmm. They fit the like in terms of the SEC, at least they fit the SEC mold the most.
Right. Mm-hmm. I, for the life of me, could not understand under any circumstances why North Carolina would be entered into the Southeastern Conference, or for that matter, the Big Ten. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just means that, a lot of these guys, a lot of this is it's almost like, it's almost like a political campaign, where you're campaigning and proving, showing people, hey, look, we need to be, here. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't like where we are right now. Okay. Well, you can want, like, hell, I can want a Ferrari. I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just people talking that aren't the commissioners of these Tony Petitti's biggest problem right at this very second is travel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
costing them a bundle to do it. It's just an absolute and total mess.
Yeah, and that's where, like, I said they're the national conference, but they're paying for being the national conference, right? Like, I don't think it can be overstated. Like, logistical nightmare feels like an understatement for what the Big Ten has going on right now.
Well, think about it. I mean, you've got your tennis and golf team going from Chapel Hill to Palo Alto.
Yeah. I mean,
they're not traveling charter.
They highlighted it for the ACC tournament for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford flew in to North Carolina, to Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They flew in, played one game, lost, got right back on a flight and flew back home. You feel bad for the kids. Like that's who's losing. Like these coaches, these kids. That's who's losing in these situations. Because you know how pissed I would be if they're like, yeah, we've got to go play a game. Oh, by the way, like this is the number. What was North Carolina at the time? North Carolina was like number 4 in the country. We've got to go play the number 4 team in the country. I know we haven't had a good year. I know we got to go fly, 6 hours, change time zones, all this, that, and the other. Oh, by the way, if you don't win, we got to turn around, hop right back on the damn plane because this is a single elimination thing, and we're headed home. It just sucks. Like there's not one good. And look, these guys are competitors, and you would expect them. Like they would have said all the right things. Like we're ready for the challenge. We don't care. Like we're ready to go play our best baseball. This, that, and the other. Matter of fact is that it wears on these minds. Like that's tough. It situationally, like you believe in yourself and you believe in your team, but still, when you look at the task at hand and the travel at hand, the mountain that could already be just gets that much larger.
Well, there's that. And the other thing that is a problem is that you've got a deal where I remember Joey Johnson, when he worked for the Tampa Tribune, went to cover Florida State in the ACC tournament. and his plane got delayed, and they said to him, "Look, we don't have time to go to the to the hotel and then over to the to the arena." So he said, "I'll just take my suitcase and everything, go over to the arena." Goes over to the arena, gets there just in time for tip, does his game story. They lose. He files his game story. He goes back to the airport, and he never once went to the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you, and that's basically going from Tallahassee to Charlotte. Okay.
Yeah.
That's maybe an hour flight, maybe 90 minutes, from wheels up to wheels down. And it's not like flying 5 hours across country to lose a game and then go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that sounds, not that bad in comparison when you know what Stanford's having to deal with.
And remember, because of what you're doing here, you got to carry a trainer staff with you. You got to carry academic advisors with you. So you're not just talking, a swim team, a golf team, a tennis team, a whatever. You're talking about a serious amount of people moving from one side of the country to the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, for football, especially when you go back to football, these teams have equipment buses. Those equipment buses have to leave. Like, I mean, Stanford has a game in North Carolina. I guess we're leaving on Tuesday. Like that's where you're at with these things.
Yeah, logistically, it's a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to get better. All right, my friend. Let's want some final thoughts before we get out of here on the Thursday.
Yeah, really good weekend for sports. Obviously, you have the Stanley Cup final. Obviously, you have the NBA finals. Yankees Red Sox is this weekend. I'm looking forward to that, especially if the Red Sox are somehow able to win this game. That would be 2 series wins in a row.
Oof,
where again, my delusion will continue to grow if that were to happen. And then you have the Memorial. You have a great golf tournament. Serena Williams is apparently returning to tennis. That appears to be something that is happening this weekend. If I've read tweets correctly, there's a chance I missed that. But yeah, great weekend for sports. Great weekend where I'm at for weather. So looking forward to it.
Great. All right. Well, tomorrow we'll take a look at all that. But for now, we're going to be going, folks. And thank you for joining us. Had a lot of fun. And hope you got, leave us a comment and some questions. I know that's something you guys always like to do. So we will answer them. Take care, everybody. For Matt, I'm Jim.